Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Housing Houston. I am one of your co hosts, Mariela Aguirre with Terra Residential Services.
And I am your other co host, Kayla Ewald with First American Title. And today we have a super special guest, lots of knowledge that she's going to be giving you. Her name is Carey Worrell, and she is with Simple Law.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, we're so excited for you to be here to talk about. Specifically, she is a real estate attorney. Also, we are getting the bread and butter with the legalities when it comes to real estate. And so we are going to indulge with a lot of questions and hopefully getting some good treats out of this.
Hopefully I have the answers.
You
And
do.
if I will
know.
find them later.
You do.
Not only is she an attorney, but she is an entrepreneur to the max. And so she can speak on quite a bit of things. And so we're very happy to have you here. One of the first things right off the bat, I mean, me being an investor, and I speak for a lot of investors as well, is it's always the decision of when is the right time, or should I even, how to start that conversation of putting it into now an LLC, or what is that even a great option for me? So kind of what is your viewpoint on maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't?
Yeah. So my viewpoint and the advice I give all investors is if you are able to put your investment property into an LLC, it is always a good idea to do that, right? The LLC basically protects an owner from liability that stems from that investment. So if you just buy a house, 123 Main Street, and you rent it out to a tenant, you have your name on it as the owner, and somebody gets bit by a dog, they trip on the doorstep, you didn't put the right smoke detector in, something along those lines, and they sue you, everything you own is on the hook if you are found liable. So that could be your savings that you have from a previous job, another investment property, a business interest that you might have, stocks and bonds you might own, money you inherited from your grandma. Literally anything is on the line. And so the way you can avoid that is by setting up your investment property as a true business, setting it up as an LLC, because kind of one of the basic principles of corporate law is that the liabilities of a business can only be satisfied with the assets of that business. Mm-hmm. So if you own one property and you put it in an LLC and then you get sued based on your operations of that property, what's on the hook is that property and maybe any money you have in a checking account associated with that property. Not all of those other things, all of those other assets you hold. But the only way to actually gain that liability protection is to go through the process of actually putting your home and your investment business into the corporate structure of an LLC. There are other corporate structures you can use, but LLC is definitely the best one for real estate investors and the most common. Mm-hmm. What prevents people from doing it is two or three things. One is if you have a loan on the property, right? Because lenders have given you a loan and they've done it based on your credit, your history, your assets. And that's who's on the hook for paying it back. And they're secured with that real estate so that if you don't pay, they come and take the house back. So they don't really like it when you transfer that property to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And in order to get it into an LLC, you do have to transfer it to an LLC. And that can trigger banks to say, well, wait a minute. We gave a loan to John Doe, and now 123 Main Street owns this property. That's an issue. And in most traditional lending, if you do that, it gives the lender the option of accelerating your loan. So right now you agree that you're making payments of principal and interest every month. You may be paying it for 30 years. If you were to transfer that property, to sell it or transfer it to your brother or whatever, including transferring it to an LLC, that allows your lender to say, oh, wait a minute, nope, you owe us the whole balance right now. And most loans are structured that way. Mm-hmm. Having said that, most lenders don't actually do that if they're getting paid, right? They don't have to accelerate your loan. It just gives them the option to accelerate your loan if you transfer the property to somebody else or another entity. The reality of it is, lenders that are getting paid on time, the full amount of the payment, don't really like to rock the boat or buck the system. They have no incentive to, accelerate your loan and potentially foreclose on your property if they're getting paid. It's more expensive. Why are they going to do that? Like, they're getting the benefit of their bargain. Yeah. And this is just a technicality. And most of the time they don't care. And in fact, I've never actually seen a lender accelerate the loan when somebody has transferred it to an LLC.
Okay.
But investors do need to be aware of that. And in this market, I haven't actually seen this happen, but my speculation is that if you got a loan at 2%, 3%, and now you transfer it to an LLC, that's an opportunity for the lender to say, oh, no, wait, pay me back. And now I'm going to loan this same money back out to somebody else at 7% or 8%.
Mm-hmm.
So when there is such a differential between the interest rate that you have locked in on that mortgage and the interest rate they could get in the market by loaning that money to somebody else, it may provide an incentive to go through with the cost of accelerating your loan and potentially foreclosing your mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't seen them doing this, but it is at least something, I always tell clients, this is the risk. Here's the pros, here's the cons. Ultimately, it's up to you what's worth it to you.
What you want to protect and
Yeah.
what you want to do with it.
Right.
Exactly.
And I know we lean on Carey a lot from the title perspective and her being a real estate attorney, and she's just so knowledgeable in many different areas. So tell us a little bit about you and what got you into this business and why you are a lawyer and where you've been and how you got here.
It's a very long story that
Tell
goes
us.
into my childhood. No, I mean, really why I ended up as a lawyer is that when I was younger, I was the kind of person that always argued with people, always had to have the last word, always had to tell people when they were wrong. I mean, and they were wrong, but now I've learned you don't have to tell people that they're wrong. It's just okay to let them be wrong. But so people always told me when I was a kid, oh, you should be a lawyer, which is really just a nice way of saying you're extremely annoying when you do that, but maybe you could turn it into something good and you're a kid and I don't want to insult you. So my whole life people said, you should be a lawyer. You would be a great lawyer. And so I honestly did not really consider anything other than being a lawyer.
Wow.
So that's how I became a lawyer,
Okay.
I guess. What was the other question? Oh, how did I get into real estate law? I got into real estate law because my husband is a real estate broker. And for many years, I was kind of his assistant in real estate. And so I got to know a lot of agents. We have a lot of investment properties. It's just what I know and what I'm comfortable with. And it's the people I know and the business I know. So that's kind of how it happened.
I love it. And you love working with real estate agents.
Yes.
You feel like you work with them hand in hand and you're able to help them. I know you recently started, I think over the last several months, a retainer program where you can actually get with Carey and pay her on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, whatever that looks like. And then she will be the attorney on file for you. So that's amazing.
Awesome.
Do you want to tell them a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah. So, yes, I love working with real estate agents. I work with a lot of real estate agents doing work for the agents, but also doing work for their clients when they, run into an issue or some sort of a snafu. So I was getting a lot of calls from brokers mainly, but it could be individual agents how should I fill this out? What should we do? We have this title problem. The client wants to add this special provision. Is that allowed? That type of thing. And they were just quick questions. And a lot of times those questions just weren't getting answered because if you call a typical real estate attorney, it's make an appointment. That's going to be in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
And then you'll talk to my intake specialist. And then maybe a lawyer will call you a week after that. And it's realtors do not operate on that timeline.
Nope.
The deal is done
Right.
by 2 days from now, much less 3 weeks from now. And that's no fault of necessarily real estate lawyers because you do have to get paperwork. You do have to get them to sign off saying that there may be a conflict or that this is the service you're providing. So there's just a lot of delay inherently in the system. That's nobody's fault. So what I started doing is I get a real estate broker and basically we set up a secure portal and they have unlimited questions throughout the month. So can we do this?
Oh,
Yes,
man.
we can.
Real estate agents, we get in trouble in special provisions.
Every day they're getting sued.
Exactly. That's been one of the number one complaints with Trek that they're receiving. It's the little special provisions box with agents like to put a lot of things in there.
And
it's
also, agents agents know what is going to get the deal done, and they do know what is best for their client, and they are right. But sometimes they word it in such a way that they haven't thought about, well, what about this, and what about this, and what about this? Because that's not their area of expertise, right? They're real estate experts. They're not supposed to know what are the potential ramifications of changing this language in the contract, which is what you're doing when you add a special provision. So it's super easy though to get a lawyer to say, okay, yeah, you tell me what you're trying to accomplish for your client. I'll give you the words that do that and don't open them up to additional exposure.
Mhm.
So basically you have unlimited questions, you know, quick type of things.
Yeah.
And then if your client actually needs something, like they need a probate filed in order to get clear title, or they need a deed to finalize a divorce or something like that, we can do it. And as long as that client is, under a listing agreement or buyer's representation agreement with your brokerage, they would be entitled to a discount. And then any work that the broker needs beyond just kind of the questions, also you get a discount off of our normal rates.
Oh, that's awesome. So
So,
what type
yeah.
of turnaround time are we talking? Like if they ask a question
Yeah,
on
so-
Sunday at 1 p.m.
Yeah. Okay, so we do have this outlined in our retainer agreement. What does it say? We have things classified. Like if it's an emergency, you'll get a turnaround within like 4 business hours. If it's something that is not an emergency, it's like, 1 business day. It's pretty quick. I mean, we understand how realtors work,
Mhm.
and we also have a pretty good grasp of what's an emergency that's going to derail this deal if you don't get an answer right away,
Mhm.
and what is something that maybe requires additional research and the deal can withstand that delay in the process. So we understand all that. We know how it works. We know deals and contracts sometimes depend on turning things around within hours. So we try and do that when we can.
That's awesome. And also you come from already as an investor, so you even see it from that perspective.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
That's awesome to have someone on retainer for that, and the level of expertise. Why not have a real estate attorney in your back pocket for
Yeah.
this deal? And it's like we can lose or make a lot of money here.
Yeah.
At this point, it's make it or break it.
Right.
So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Really cool.
So big.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know the real estate agents that I work with, the brokers, the independent brokers of Pearland, they are thrilled with the idea. And I know some of them have already signed up with you. So that's super exciting.
Yeah.
Nice.
No,
Thank you.
we've been
Thank
able-
you for
Yeah,
helping them
no,
and
and-
doing that.
I mean, it's great. And it's good for everybody's business.
Right.
Obviously it's good for our business, and it's good for agents too and brokers. I think it can help brokers set themselves apart in trying to attract agents
Mhm.
because they are providing, it's not just put our name on your contract and we're going to take part of your commission and we're going to never do anything to help you.
Mhm.
That's actually adding value for agents in recruiting. And then for agents, it adds value for their clients too, to
Mhm.
know that there is an attorney that you can get on, in touch with immediately if you need to. And I think a lot of times, especially if realtors have engineer clients that
Mhm.
really do, there's those some clients
Yep.
that don't even read the contract and the initial, and they're like, I don't even know. When's the closing date? How much is my house
Yep.
selling for? I'm not sure. But then there's other people that read every single line. And in the promulgated contracts, it does say, if you need the help of an attorney,
Mhm.
you should consult one. So a lot of times people read that and they're like, wait, should I be consulting an attorney? How do I consult an attorney? And the reality of it is, if you don't already have a relationship with a real estate attorney, you're usually not going to be able to get one in time to review an offer
Yeah.
or something like that, if that's what you want them to do. So
Or you're sitting at the closing table and they read that statement
Right,
and then
they're like,
hang on,
right.
we have Carey on speed dial.
Right.
Essentially, let me just message her in the portal. What do you, have
Right.
concerns about? That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah,
And
and
the biggest part of it is you're also providing a huge amount of peace of mind on
Mhm.
both the real estate agent, the broker, who is
Mhm.
now decreased in liability because now you're
Right.
consulting an attorney, cool,
Yeah.
but also then your client for the real estate agent, because all of this we're dealing with thousands of dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not just 2,000.
Right.
No, we're dealing with a whole house.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times there is a huge fear implemented. Because they're
Mhm.
like, am I doing the right thing? I don't know.
Mhm.
Maybe we should have consulted an attorney.
Right.
And so they panic, and it's like, well, we got you because
Right.
we have an attorney who we can speak with, and that
Mhm.
then translates over to give them that peace of mind that they want and they
Yeah.
feel taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially for realtors, I feel like most realtors, all good realtors, know they're not supposed to give legal advice, but
Right.
it is very difficult to do the job of a realtor and not give legal advice.
Right.
Almost impossible, honestly.
It's really tough.
And so a lot of times, you might have a client that says, I don't want to follow through with this sale. I'm the seller. I've decided I don't want to sell my house. I want to breach this contract. And they ask their agent, well, what happens if I do? And most agents will say, well, you'll be in breach of the contract, which is true, but they don't really know, okay, what's next? What happens if I breach this contract?
Mhm.
And this seller maybe has a day to decide what they're going to do. And they really do need to talk to a lawyer. And again, if you don't already know one, you're not going to get an appointment that fast. But if your broker is, signed up for this, or at least knows us, we're going to prioritize those brokers' clients also on a quick turnaround. But yeah, there's a lot of agents out there that are doing their best to not give legal advice, but even when they might know the answer,
Right.
and they want to help their clients out and help protect their clients as best they can.
You hit the nail on the head whenever you're talking about the relationship side of the business too, because even though you're a real estate attorney, even though you're a real estate broker, even though I work for a title company, still matters the relationships, who you know, when to call them. And it's great to have you on their side. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely a business built.
So your main office is in Webster?
It's technically Houston, but it's the Clear Lake area.
Okay, Clear Lake. But you service what areas?
We service all over the state of Texas. Okay. Most of our clients tend to be in the Houston area, but to be honest, there's very little that is limited in geography. Most of my clients I haven't even met in person, unfortunately, because so much can be done remotely. There are some things that have to be done in person, usually if they're related to a court. But beyond that, most real estate transactions now, the work of a lawyer can really be done from anywhere. So we help people all over the state of Texas. That's where we're licensed. And if you need help in another state, we can, definitely obviously point you to somebody else. But
what do you find that you're helping most people with right now? On the title side, we see one divorce and all of a sudden there's 20 divorce files, or, heirship affidavits. We get one and we get 20. So what are you seeing mostly now?
A few things.
Okay.
I am seeing a lot, two main things. One is probates. A lot of, we're going to sell this house, but we didn't realize that when we got it from grandma that they didn't actually fix the chain of title. So fixing the chain of title through probate issues. The other one I'm finding is a lot of, I don't even know if I would call it title fraud, because that's not really it, but it's, people buying something other than what they thought they were buying for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. Either they didn't get title insurance, they just went straight to their neighbor and bought their house, and no one actually really knew where the boundary was, and no one got a survey, and now you bought the lot next door to the one you thought you did. Or, I've had several of these actually. A family member wants to give part of their property to another family member, or even sell it, whatever, and they draft the deed themselves, and they literally just put the wrong legal description. So now the aunt gives her nephew what she thought was the vacant lot next door to her house, but actually she gave her nephew her house. And then, nephew tries to
laughing, but it's not funny. It's not funny at all.
At least 5 clients in the past few months.
Oh gosh.
And it's definitely fixable if those people are alive and in agreement.
Willing to fix it.
But the problem is...
They might be like, now I have this house.
Exactly.
Why am I going to sign it back over?
The problem is sometimes people aren't willing to fix it. Or even if they are, they just don't understand what the problem is. And people are so fearful of being taken advantage of that when I go to them and say, hey, look, there's a mistake. We need you to fix this and sign this deed instead of that deed. They're like, well, no, wait a minute. I don't want to do that, because they're worried that someone else is trying to take advantage of them. So it can be difficult to just educate people on, here's the issue. Here's why it's in everybody's best interest to fix it. And then obviously if somebody has passed away in the meantime, now it's a problem.
Well, speaking of transferring or passing it on to someone when everybody's alive, so can you speak on, is it best for mom and dad to sell at what amount to one of the children, or is gifting a better idea? Or can you speak on both sides of that transaction?
Sure.
Either one.
Yeah. So a lot of times I will get calls, and I think this is what you're referring to, but correct me if this is not what you're talking about. Mom and dad are getting older. Maybe they're moving into assisted living or to a retirement community. And they say, you know what, I'm just going to give you my house now, as opposed to you inheriting it when I pass away, because they think that's going to be easier and you not have to go through any process. And they'll call me and can you just draft the deed? My mom's giving me her house. And I'm always like, well, sure, I can draft any deed you want, but let me ask you a few more questions to see if it's really a good idea to do it that way. Because the two main things that people don't think about are one, getting title insurance, right? Because even if their mother or father has owned that house for as long as they can remember, there could still be a title issue. And the only way to get protected is to go through a title company and get title insurance. So that's one. But the other one that people don't think about, and this is going to be too much for the length of this podcast for me to like go into great detail, is that you get a substantial tax benefit when you inherit property that you do not get if you are gifted property during somebody's lifetime. So I don't know how far you want me to go into this. You get something called, you can Google this, a step up in basis on death. So let's say your mom bought a property for $100,000 and now it's worth $500,000. And let's say it's an investment property. So if she were to sell that property now for $500,000, she would have a $400,000 gain. It's a little more complicated than that, but essentially, and she'd have to pay capital gains tax on that. If she gifts that property to you during her lifetime, you get her same basis. So if you sell it for $500,000, you're also paying capital gains tax on the gain. However, if you inherit that property when your mother passes away, you get an immediate step up in basis to market value. So now, the moment your mom passes away, you inherit the property, it's worth $500,000, you sell it for $500,000, there's no gain. And so there's no capital gains tax. And so it is it's slightly more complicated than that. Do not take this as tax advice. Speak to a CPA or an attorney or you do any of these things.
So what I'm hearing is whenever you have certain situations like this, come and talk to Carey and she will advise you on the best bang for your buck and get all of your documentation in order for whenever somebody does pass away, you can still.
Because there are different ways to accomplish what the goal actually was, which was to make it simpler to pass property down. And people kind of come to a lawyer sometimes and they're like, well, I want to do this. I'm like, well, no, that's not actually what you want to do if this is your goal. But there are other ways to meet that same goal. Just it's not with a deed.
Yeah.
Right. So if going back to kind of my first question or the follow-up question would be if the daughter wants to go ahead and put it as a rental property and does want to put it in an LLC, can you also speak on what does that really entail? Because now you're running a business. So now you have obligations, right? So because a lot of people think, oh, just put it in an LLC and call it good. I don't have to worry about it. And wait. Yes, you do. And so can you speak on what, maybe what are the top 3 things that people often forget about, because I know there's accounting that has to go into it. So can you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you're absolutely right. A lot of times people say, oh, I want this liability protection by putting something into a company that is separate from me. So you're trying to tell the world that this company is separate from me. Well, now you have to act like it, right? You have to maintain that over time. And typically what that means is accounting. You have a bank account for this LLC and the income from the company comes into the bank account and the expenses from the company go out of that bank account and no other expenses, right? You don't take in the rent to the company bank account and then use that to pay your daycare bill or whatever, right? That doesn't work that way. You have to use the money that's in that account to pay for the expenses of the investment. That doesn't mean that you can't distribute to yourself the additional earnings. You absolutely can, but you have to do it all through appropriate accounting. The other thing people forget is they transfer their property to an LLC and they forget to change their insurance to the name of the LLC. You need to contact your insurer and let them know, okay, I have this insurance policy. I am now I'm moving this property to an LLC. What do I need to do to make sure that I am still fully insured?
Those are a great marketing piece if you don't already have it.
I do not
like we have marketing pieces that are like moving with young kids. Here's your checklist. Moving with that would be awesome. Moving your properties into an LLC. Here's your checklist.
Yeah, those are the 2 main ones. Yes, the insurance and keeping the accounting separate. Let me think if there's any others. I mean, it's really just not commingling your own personal money with the business money. That is the biggest one.
Can you define that?
Commingling?
Yeah, okay. A lot of people don't know.
You would think it would be kind of...
People forget what not to do, and commingling is one of the biggest ones.
So commingling basically means like mixing up all your money, right? So what sometimes people do, and let's just imagine an instance where somebody has the house just in their own personal name. You get the rent from the house, you put it into your personal checking account, and then you pay all your bills out of that personal checking account because you're like, well, I earned this money and now I'm going to use it to pay my bills. You can't really do that when you have an LLC because you need the protection to show that it's separate.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have the rent or whatever proceeds you get from that investment going into an account, and then the expenses of that investment being paid out of that account, not your own personal expenses being paid out of that account. That is the biggest mistake people make. They're like, okay, well, I just got $5,000 of rent. I need to make my car payment. I'm going to make it out of my business account instead of my personal account. You can't do that.
Yes.
You can still use that money to pay your car payment, but the way you have to do it is by distributing it to yourself out of the business account into your personal account and then paying it from your personal account so that all of that can be tracked. So you can say, this is what we took in. These were the expenses. This was the profit. I, as the business owner, am getting that profit as a distribution, and then I can use that to pay my personal expenses. But it has to be done that way if you want to keep the protection of the LLC.
100%.
And also if you want to get your taxes done right. And if you want to get all those deductions that a lot of people go into this business to try and get,
Mm-hmm.
you have to keep the accounting separate. And a lot of people think they are going to save money by kind of doing this bookkeeping themselves. Just like I recommend getting a realtor to buy and sell your house, a property manager to manage your rental properties, a title company to do your title search, I recommend a bookkeeper or CPA to do your bookkeeping, right? Because it's not as easy as it seems, even if you have a very, one investment property and it might not be a substantial number of transactions per month. Doing it right is what is protecting you, and it is worth it to pay a professional to do it.
Absolutely.
And honestly, it's not going to be that expensive if you have a simple business. Obviously, the more complicated it gets, the more expensive it gets, but also the more valuable it is.
Right.
I'm a huge believer in paying professionals to do what they are professionals at. I mean, even though my husband sold real estate for 20 years, and we have bought investments in other markets, and we use realtors because we know, you need to talk to a local expert, even though, lots of people try and do it themselves. But same thing with bookkeeping.
Oh, yeah, 100%, because they're experts in that craft.
Right.
And so in that same essence, while we know a little bit as investors of what can be a write-up, what all the benefits are, but a tax professional, a strategist, will know in depth more than what you know. Maybe there's something, a hidden something, a good gem that they might know, and like, hey, we can actually help you here.
Right.
So getting a professional is always important for what you're doing, especially if you're dealing with real estate. This is big money we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutly.
Yeah, lots of liability.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So decreasing it is super important. That's what we tell our clients too. And that's the whole point of us being the property managers, is that we're here to take as much off your plate, so that way we're handling, the liability. And if you, as a single landlord, end up saying something wrong to the tenant, it's like, ooh, now you're in legal trouble. And it's like, okay, well, now guess who we have to go to, So because we know we've been doing this for over 30 years, like we are able to give that comfort and that other peace of mind of, we got you, you know, and we have the experts who can cater to something that if it does escalate to a different, level.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have made a lot of money off of people that were trying to save money by not.
It's always
going on record. That's hilarious.
I would rather see people protected, but I've had a few clients recently. They're like, well, we're buying a house and we didn't want to pay a realtor, so we're doing it ourselves. But now we're in this pickle. I'm like, yeah, you are in a pickle. Would have been really a lot cheaper for you to use a real estate agent, but you can't.
So let me ask you this, because you do a lot of work for real estate agents around our area. How do you keep track of who gives you which clients in order to send back to these real estate agents to where they can actually get the sell? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just
I am
100%.
I'm never trying to undercut real estate agents. So if somebody comes to me and they said, well, can you review this contract? I always am like, do you have a realtor? Because I would recommend a realtor first, and I can tell you who to use if you need somebody. But we do. Yeah, I mean, we just keep tracking our intake process. How'd you get our name? Oh, I got it from my realtor. What's your realtor's name? And then we'll always, try and reach out and thank those people and keep all those people as referrals. I mean, sometimes people are like, well, so many real estate agents, so how are you ever going to refer business to me? there is the right realtor for every person.
Yes.
Either a
Absolutely.
specialist in a neighborhood, somebody who does a different type of transaction, somebody who has a certain personality that would go well with this buyer. And so there's no limit to the number of realtors that, I could work with, because there is somebody different for everyone, and there's enough business for all good realtors.
Say it again. Goodness gracious.
Yes,
Yes.
say it
yes,
again.
say it
Should I
again.
put it on a t-shirt?
Man, oh,
Yeah,
yeah, please.
no.
I will buy one.
There
Make
is
it in
enough
black.
business
There's
for
enough
all of
to
the
go
good
around.
realtors. Yes.
Yes.
Now, I will say, there are some not good realtors also.
Mhm.
I don't actually work with that many of them because they're not trying to reach out to lawyers. They're just like making stuff up
Oh, yeah,
themselves and
that's-
whatever.
yeah.
But most of the ones I work with are good, and there is enough business for all of them.
And let me just go on record. I knew the answer to that. I know that I just wanted her to make it known to you guys that you send her referrals. She's going to send those referrals back to you. She's going to send your clients back to you, and she works hand in hand with you guys. So just know that moving forward.
Yes,
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
definitely always trying to highlight realtors' value, because I really do think they are valuable. It's not just something I'm saying to like try and get clients. I do think that a good realtor will make more than what they cost for their client. If they're not, then you have the wrong realtor, and I can refer you to some that will. But I mean, even like I'm in some lawyer Facebook groups all the time, like at least once a month, a lawyer will be like, hey, I want to sell my own house to, save money on a broker. Give me some tips. What should I do? Where do I find the contracts? And I'm always like, why are you doing this? Like the
You're
very
already
fact that
wasting
you
your
have to
time.
ask,
Yes.
where do I find the contract, should be an indicator that you should call a realtor. And I always say, like, if you think this is going to save you money, then you haven't met the right realtor. Send me a message, tell me where you are, and I'll connect you with somebody that's going to.
We see it on
yeah.
our end too. We walk in, I would take 100 times over a real estate agent working a file for $100,000 over a for sale by owner of $500,000. Like
Right.
the sales price matters to us. The higher it is, the better it is. But these people, 500,000, no real estate agent, they're calling us 24 times a day,
Right.
all
Yeah.
day long, 24/7. These people, $100,000, the real estate agent knows what they are doing.
Right.
You are in good hands.
Yes.
We see it
Absolutely.
every single day. I'm like, please go get a real estate agent.
I know. And I tell people that a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm not trying to talk myself out of business, but there are a lot of things I can't do. I'm not good at, that only a realtor can do. And they won't get that kind of service from me. So,
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and all of that's so important
Yeah.
to highlight on that, because our integrity is on the line for
Right.
all three of us.
Yeah.
And so the last thing we want to do is cut the hand that feeds us.
Right,
But
absolutely.
There are golden geese. And I say that all the time. Real estate agents feed us.
Right.
And so if we start breaking that trust, that we've built for so long, then there's no more
Yeah.
leads coming in.
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel like that's super important for them to hear, because they feel that real estate attorneys are, well, now they can do it too. And it's like, yeah, maybe, but you're the expert. You're the one on the field.
Right.
I would much rather, and I say the same thing about my own investments. I am a real estate agent, but I have my license to do property management. I have to, but for me, I'd rather not do buying or selling transactions, because that's a whole different ballgame. And
Right.
I'd rather give that to somebody else that they're going to take care of me, because they know the ins and outs.
Yeah.
So I totally get that.
Yeah. And, sometimes I do get put in a little bit of a sticky situation if somebody calls and they say, I'm super mad at my realtor. I think they screwed this up. My first question is always, who is your realtor?
Yeah.
Okay, who is
And
it?
it's not so I can find out the people that are doing a bad job. That's really not it. Because I also realize that if a client or potential client calls with a complaint against their realtor or about anything, that I am only hearing their side of the story.
Right.
But I ask, because if it is a realtor that I work with or have worked with in the past, I won't represent that client. I can't represent that client. And that's why I need to find out, hey, before you tell me your whole story, tell me who you're working with, so I can make sure that I don't have a conflict with this person, because I can't represent somebody complaining about an agent that I do a lot of work with, and I don't want to. And if they want to get another lawyer, everyone is entitled to seek a lawyer, but it's not going to be me.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also I try and, sometimes realtors do make mistakes. I mean, and I've talked to a lot of realtors that will call me, I made a mistake. How can I fix this? And that's what we do. We help you fix it, figure out how to minimize the damage, because people are always going to make mistakes. But,
And it's an ever-changing business. I mean,
Absolutely.
just over the past couple months, we have all the contract changes and all of the
Mhm.
T47, the new ones, the old ones, and everything is constantly evolving. And so keeping up with it can be difficult.
Yeah.
That's why we offer so many training, which Carey does do CE certified classes over all of the legality and the contract changes. So if you need some of that, she's a great instructor.
It's funny you would say that. Somebody sent me an article this morning that helped me feel very vindicated because when we were going through all of those changes with commissions and agents are freaking out and like, we're not going to get paid. I really felt like, and I felt like I had good reasons to say this, that the best agents would end up getting paid more at the end of all of this.
Mhm.
And no one believed me when I said that, but there is actually now
Remember you
a
saying
report just came out this morning. Somebody emailed it to me. I mean, read it yourself. Don't take my word for what it said, but it did say within a certain price range, and I think it was homes under 500,000, that agents are getting paid more now than they were previously.
And I can be a witness to you saying that in front of the brokers.
I
remember you saying that in front. You're like, we have nothing to be scared about.
Yeah.
If you're doing what you should be doing.
If you're good.
Yeah.
If you're,
If you're
good
not
agent,
good, you should be scared, but you always should have been. And there's something better for you to do out there,
Yeah.
like that you're better at.
Yep.
Yes. So when is the right time for both a real estate agent to come to you and for a consumer to come to you? When is the right time?
The right time before you screw stuff up. A lot of times people are like, can you help me? I'm like, do you have a time machine? And we can go back in time to before you made this mistake.
Why do I feel like you really tell them that
I
too?
do say that. But I mean, I say it nicely.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
No, okay, but really the best time. I mean, honestly, for a realtor, if you want to operate as a true professional and do a lot of business, call me when you get your license and reach out to me then. And I'm not going to charge you anything for it, but at least get to know me, get to know us so that you do have somebody that you can call right away. Obviously, though, if you haven't already done that, at the first inkling that there might be a problem, because without fail, the longer you let a problem fester or go on, the more expensive it is to resolve it, and the less likely that it actually can be resolved in your favor. And then for a consumer, I mean, honestly, it depends on what they're doing. If you're talking about an investor that wants to make this a business, I think it's important to talk to an attorney right when you get started, because setting it right from the beginning will save you so much money in the long run. And a lot of times, and this is true with all businesses, people that are getting started don't have a ton of cash. And so they cut corners wherever they think they can, which I understand. I've been there before myself. But cutting the corners with a lawyer, I don't think is the place to do it. It always ends up being more expensive. And we will work with you. We understand, like, you're just getting started. You haven't made a dime from this business. You don't want to spend thousands of dollars, from the get-go. But we can, I think, educate people on what is the value of what could be provided. What are really the things that you could wait on? What are the things that you really need to do, right now?
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah, I would say, just to piggyback on that, I would say the last meeting to call a real estate attorney would be maybe at that listing appointment. That's the longest you should wait, because at that listing appointment, you should be asking those questions and you should be, seeing if there's been a death on the property by somebody that owns the property. And you should be asking if you've ever, been divorced, what's your marital status, those hard questions. We do have a listing questionnaire that you can ask at those listing appointments, but anytime they're saying something, always go to Carey first before even opening title and before starting on us, because she's going to be able to fix it for less money and quicker than what we do. We can fix it, but it's going to be along the other 50, 75 files that we have working right now. So it's not going to be as fast.
And I think also you brought up a good point, is knowing the right questions to ask, because at a bare minimum, an agent should be able to take pictures of your home and put a listing into the MLS. That is the bare minimum, right? So anything you add beyond that is differentiating you from your competition as a realtor, because there are some people doing the bare minimum. And one of those things that honestly I think it's overlooked and is a true opportunity for really professional agents to make more money is by asking questions. I'm not just here to stage your house and take pictures and put it on the MLS and see what happens. I'm going to ask you the questions up front about divorces, probates, potential problems with title. And even if you don't have any of those problems, even if there is not an issue with probate or an issue with a divorce, just by asking those questions, you're going to establish yourself as somebody that knows more than just how to input something into the MLS.
Agreed.
And so if you can do that in a way that doesn't take up too much of your client's time, because people don't want to be there for like a 2-hour interrogation.
Thank you. Yeah. Be socially aware when you're at these meetings,
Right.
please.
Yes, exactly. But,
Know when to
just
talk.
at least ask a question or two and then follow up if needed. And even if that doesn't become relevant, you have established yourself as a true expert.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think that's extremely helpful.
Yeah.
Speaking of scary stuff like divorces and all that stuff, like, one thing that popped in my head is one of the biggest fears for investors tends to be evictions.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is always like, oh, what do I do? And
Yeah.
a lot of self-managing landlords tend to, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They start Googling or ask ChatGPT,
Right.
And so at that point, that's a good point for them to reach out to you and like, hey, I'm going through this process.
Yeah.
So can you kind of do a guide or a simplified guide of, how that would even look like?
Right. So the biggest way to not have trouble with evictions is to have a good tenant screening process to start with, which I'm sure you guys do.
Yes.
But let's say that, things happen
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you're going to get a tenant and they don't follow through. And we do a lot of it. We do help people with a lot of evictions. But the way you just kind of want to run down of the process.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Like with you.
Sure.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So,
So
if
this is
we're
self-managing landlord and they don't have me, for example.
Right.
How
Yeah.
would that look?
So if we do an eviction for somebody, we basically, first we talk to them and ask them, is this something that you want us to handle completely from start to finish, which is going to be more expensive than we can tell you a little bit of the legwork to do yourself to keep your costs a little bit lower. And some people want the full service option, which we're happy to do. We'll post the notice, we'll send a courier over there, we'll do all of those things. Some people want to keep costs lower and do that. And I advise all my clients, and maybe you're going to tell me that you guys do something different. As soon as there's a lease violation, specifically non-payment of rent, the first time it's late, you really need to post a notice to vacate and show them that you're serious about getting your rent paid on time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to follow through with that. You can post the notice. You have to give a statutory notice prior to filing an eviction and then still work it out with them. But posting that notice lets them know, like, I'm really serious. You have to pay rent.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that you're a mean person. It doesn't mean that you can't help somebody that's in a bind. You absolutely can. But it shows them that at the end of the day, if they don't communicate with you, they don't work something out with you, that you are going to evict them. And that is not mean. That can be helpful to the person being evicted if they're in a home that they can't afford.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they need to move out. And that is... Everyone's going to stay in a home where the landlord's not making them pay rent on time, right? Like, please sign me up. If you have any property owners that are not requiring you to pay rent, it's another company, right? So there's not a motivation for somebody to pay rent on time when nobody is making sure that they're doing it. So that's kind of what we advise our clients. And then we will handle filing eviction paperwork, showing up at the hearing. But we also, that is something that a lot of people do on their own. We can help you kind of figure out how to do it on your own if that's what you want to do. I think it's easier, and we know it's done right if a lawyer's doing it, but I am sensitive to the fact that sometimes that's not in the budget, and an eviction is something that a lot of landlords do themselves, especially if they're true professional landlords and they have a lot of experience doing this.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's the decision between, like, do I want full service and I have to pay for it?
Right.
And save my time, which is like something that I would do. I'm like,
Right.
I'd rather not, I don't want to waste time and energy on this.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather let a professional handle that.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
I'm not going to screw it up, you
Yeah.
know? So, yeah, that's definitely something that, you have to decide on as a landlord.
Yeah.
Where do you want to save?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of times, there is ramifications to filing an eviction incorrectly or to use just,
Yeah, because
what a lot of landlords do is they just go change the locks and tell you to move out. Like, you're not allowed to do that.
Right. Remember, you're not allowed to do
You're
that.
not allowed to do that if
No.
you are a residential landlord. You cannot just
Yes.
change the locks
Please don't
when
do
somebody
that.
doesn't pay rent.
Say it again.
Yes,
Say it
please.
again.
I'm going to put this in bold under that.
Yeah,
Don't do that.
Well, and sometimes I'll talk to people after they've already done that. I'm like, you can't do that.
Go back and change.
Go
Okay,
back
have y'all
and
seen
change the
that
locks
meme where
back.
it's like the plugging in, and if you've already plugged it in, don't unplug it. And already plug it. That's what it reminded me of. Like, okay, don't go back and change them again.
Yeah, right.
Just call me.
Kind of
at that
depends.
Point.
Let's see what if they what was
Yeah.
their response.
That's
and,
funny.
So yes, we can handle evictions for people if it comes to that. But hopefully you have good tenants and you won't have to do that. So, but it always happens. I mean, it happens. It happens.
I love it. Well, I know, Mariela, I'm speaking for the both of us. We have loved sitting with you. I find myself learning so much more each and every time that I meet with you. And I'm grateful to be on your team and that we get to be in this business together.
Yes.
It's a newfound relationship, I guess, maybe a year.
Something like
Year and a half.
Yeah.
But I have loved every minute of it. And I know that you are a super busy superwoman. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation.
Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this amazing talk. I am one of your co-hosts, Mariela Aguirre with Terra Residential Services.
And I am your other co-host, Kayla Ewald with First American Title. Until next time.
Bye, y'all.